Power of actions and words. Words and actions, actions and words. This is key to the customer service experience because these are the things that people are going to remember. These are the things that are going to help build a memory of our brand. So it's what you do and how you do it, and it's what you say and how you say it. So the how in this equation here is actually very, very important. The how you say it. So we talked in the previous class about language, about verbal, vocal, and nonverbal. And so that comes into the how. So how you say what you're saying is expressed in all these different ways. But what you do and how you do it, so your actions, that also has a big impact on the customer service experience. So you just mentioned having an experience at an Ace Hardware store. So what was the action that they took with you? So we were talking about I notice, I care, but there was actually an action there.
Actually, just like getting into my project, asking me what it is, and trying to figure out a solution. And it's happened just so many times across so many different. Like I've walked into many different aces, and there's just that. I think it's one of their core values of like checking in with every customer and figuring out what they need, and helping them solve their problem, so they can move on and hopefully come back again and again.
That's right. Yeah. So interacting was the action, right? They got in there with you, they asked you some questions, and they weren't afraid to be bold and say, I think, I know, right? Yeah, so those are incredible words to use and an incredible simple action of like, hey, what can I do for you, right? Yeah, so actions and words are incredibly resonant in the customer service experience. Now, when we do commit to customer service, it's really important that our actions and our words are in alignment with our brand promise, and then vice versa, right? That our brand promise demonstrates the words and actions that we're going to take. This is something that I think is, this is where you find cracks in things, right? When things are not in alignment. So when somebody says, oh God, what was it? I was on the phone, I bought a new mattress, and it was one of these companies that's only online, and I was setting up the delivery date, and they called and said, yeah, just call this number and we'll set up the delivery for you. So I called the number and they said, we care about you as a customer and we can't wait to serve you. And then they said, pick a bunch of numbers, so choose one if this, choose two of this. I did that, followed that, got to the phone queue. After I picked the last one thinking, okay, now someone's gonna come online, it went to a phone ringing. And the phone rang, and the phone rang, and the phone rang about 6 times, and then they went back to, we care about our customers. And then it rang, and it was ringing. It wasn't even like a voiceover or a soundtrack. It was just ringing in perpetuity. And then nobody came back, and then I hung up. Because I was like, what the heck? But that was an empty, empty promise. We care about our customers, and yet I really didn't even know, did I call the right thing? So I called back, and I tried a different number, because they had Pacific and Eastern and Central time zones. So I picked a different time zone, thinking, well, maybe they're starting there before starting with, I don't know. So I called the other one, and the same thing happened. We care about you. And then the ring of perpetuity, right? I was like, oh my God. So that was one of these things where it did not add up. The action that I wanted was somebody answering the phone or some sort of, if we don't get to your call, we'll give you $10. That certainly didn't happen. So I ended up having to go online and saying, hey, does this actually work? And they were like, yeah, it'll work. Okay. So yeah, the actions just felt like there were no actions. There were very empty words, empty promises that didn't really mean anything. And meanwhile, they've got my mattress. I want my stuff. I need them. I'm in a very weak position now. I need them, and they've got all the power. So that was the impression it left on me, was that I was powerless. And that's a terrible feeling as a customer. And they could have easily prevented that. So when you are the one in charge, when you're the one with the power, when you're the one with the control, you've got to think about these things. So you're going to have to lead by example. So this is true of the people that you are leading. They're going to look to you to be that example. You're also going to lead by example because leadership is in public. Leadership happens for other people in front of other people. So leading by example is incredibly true. So your actions and your words are going to resonate and ripple out beyond you in that moment. So they're going to demonstrate the right way and to call out the wrong way with your team. Now, this is incredibly important. Has anybody here ever worked with a manager that says all sorts of great stuff and then does the opposite? Right? Yeah. We've had that manager that we've worked with. And that's a pretty crappy thing, where they're telling you to act a certain way, and yet they were acting a different way. Everybody needs to be on time. Why is nobody on time? And then they show up whenever they want to. You know? No, you've got to be here to the very last minute, and then they leave early. It's a simple thing, dude. Like, just walk the walk, right? But you've got to demonstrate it. And then you've got to call it out when your team members aren't doing it, when your staff is not doing it. This is a big complaint I hear when I talk to staff members, is that they're not consistent in how they address the rules, right? So maybe somebody gets called out, you're 2 seconds late, you're late. And somebody else walks in 5 minutes late, oh, you know, sorry, I had blah, 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 and nothing happens. So again, it's in public, so you've got to call this stuff out. So call it out with your team, especially when you see it. Customer service is in public, so it's important to make subtle corrections in real time. So I talked about before being a maitre d' in a restaurant, and as service goes on, the host starts to lean on the host stand, and I could just watch that and be mad, or I could correct it in real time. Now, I'm not going to walk up to them and say, you know, like, come on, dude, like, get with the program, right? That's a little too rough in public. So instead, I would go over and I would tap on their shoulder and say, why don't you join me over here, right, with a smile? And they would, you're right. Because the fact is, when you make a correction, you are right. You are correct. So people will follow you. But it's important that you make corrections in real time. If somebody says something inadvertent to a client, and you can rush in and say, oh, let's try that again, right? So you're not taking the power away from your employee, but you're saying, let's try that again. And they'll be like, oh, yeah, sorry. What I meant to say was, right, you're giving them a chance to save face. So think about the times when you can correct it in public. On the flip side, if something big happens, we don't want to call it out in public because it might be embarrassing for your teammate, right? So we might want to take a note and then address it later. But think about the little things that you can correct that are going to send a message that you care about your team to the clients that are in your business. And yeah, bigger issues must be addressed. And we say after service, meaning after your business day is complete. Okay, so that's important there. Now your actions are going to communicate that you're in charge. And they're going to communicate the way you think about customer service. So if you are the one who is like trying to get in front of your guests, that's not a good message to send, right? No, you should help your guests move up. When I worked in restaurants, I was always surprised when I worked at different places that the owner would take the best seat in the house. The owner is taking the best seat in the house? No, the guest should have the best seat in the house, right? That always seemed a little strange to me. And then I would work for owners that would get up and say, no, 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 you need the table, right? Let somebody else sit here. I was like, that's correct, not taking up the table while somebody else is waiting. So think about those things that you do in your own business. Think about when you're taking the best table in the house, you know, in quotes, in your business, rather than giving it to your guests.